I'm going to go over the steps on how to install a ceiling light, and because this is a very lightweight light, I'm not concerned about the style of box, but if you have a very heavy chandelier, you want to make sure you have a fan-rated ceiling box, and that way it's going to hold that weight. But the first thing we want to do is check to make sure the electric's off, and I really like these non-contact electrical testers. And what's nice about it is when you depress the button, it gives a chirp and a light, and so you know it's working, you know your battery's working, and then you don't have to expose the wires and the potential of getting a shock. You just hold it close, and we know the electric's on. So I'll shut off the electric and we'll go through the first steps. In this box we actually have two hot wires and a neutral wire, and it has two switches that go up to this box, but because we're just using a ceiling light, we're only going to use one of the hot wires. And just make sure you use an electrical tester if you want to use the first or the second light switch in a situation like this. And this box was designed to have a ceiling fan where you could control the fan on one switch and the light on the other. But in this case we're just going to use the one wire. So the electricity's off, and now we're going to put a mounting strap to the electrical box and tighten this down. So we're just going to use, and most kits will provide screws and a mounting strap, so we'll just put this in place and screw it down. So I have the strap locked in place, and now I'm just going to fold up this wire that we're not using. I made sure that this is locked down tight. It won't pull off the connector here. And you can also wrap a little electrical tape around this to make sure it doesn't come loose. But we're just going to tuck this up in place. And now we're going to wire the light, and I'm going to share a little trick with you. So if you're installing a ceiling light by yourself, one thing I like to do is just take an old wire hanger, and I'm going to create a little double-sided hook to hold the ceiling light in place so that I can wire it easily. And just taking some side cutters, and in fact I really like these new channel lock diagonal pliers, and they have an anvil style cutting blade, and they also moved the pivot up closer to the blade, so you get about 40% more power. So I've used these and just really like them, and I don't know whether they recommend using these for cutting wire like this, but it just does an amazing job. I really like this. And so I'm just going to create a hook on this side, and this is going to allow me to work on this project without a helper. So now all I'm going to do is take the light and take my hook and put it through one of the holes, and then just connect this to the strap, and now I'm hands-free and I can connect my wires. So we want to make sure that we're connecting our black wire to the power, the hot side. In this case it's a yellow wire, and in this situation we have a solid 14 gauge wire going to a stranded wire. And what I want to do to connect these and make sure it has a good connection, I want to strip the insulation on the stranded wire down to about 3/4 of an inch, and I'm actually going to cut down the solid wire to about a 1/2 inch. I want this stranded wire to be longer so that when I connect them inside the wire connector, it's going to be a solid connection. So I'm cutting the solid wire down to about a 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to take the stranded wire, and because stranded wire is actually a little bit thicker than solid wire, some of the strands may come off when you cut this, but I want this to be just a little bit longer. And now when I use a wire connector, I'm going to just tighten this strands by hand. It's a little bit longer, and those will force themselves into the end of the wire connector and just make a really nice solid connection. So now I'll do the same thing with the white wire, our neutral wire, on this side. So I have the hot connected and the neutral connected, and you want to make sure it's wired properly. If you had this reversed, the light would still work. It would go on and off when you move the switch, but the inside of the socket would actually be live even when it was turned off. So we have this connected, and now the next thing we want to connect is the ground wire to this green screw on the grounding strap, and we want to turn it in a clockwise direction. Because in this neighborhood we have all metal boxes and metal conduit going all the way back to the service panel, they don't have a ground in this box, but the box itself and the strap is grounded. So all we need to do is connect this wire and now we'll tuck the wires back into the box and we'll connect the light. So the wires are tucked in the box, and now we have two threaded rods that stick out from the strap, and we're just going to put these through the two holes in the light and then just connect it with two decorative nuts. That's all there is to the main body of the light. So I turned the electric back on, and I'm just going to test it before we put the shade over it. And it does work, and so now we'll put the shade on. So there's the light with the shade on, and so putting up a ceiling light is a pretty easy do-it-yourself project.